Hello, ladies and gents. We are gathered here today for another episode of Wick Mick, Woke Centrist Media Club. We're going to cover a book called The Ruins of Gorlan. It is a part of a series called The Ranger's Apprentice. And here today we have Andrew Mindgasms, the Ranger. And for today's purposes, I am the Sax Knife Centrist.
Nice.
Um, so this book that we're going to talk about, um, I consider it quote unquote wholesome fantasy. Um, this is not kind of the stuff that we're used to talking about with like gruesome deaths and sex and violence and gritty realism.
hmm
This is more about an aspiring story, a coming of age story for a couple different characters.
Yep.
This book happens to have, I would consider, two protagonists. We have Will, and we have his other counterpart, Horace. So, as this book starts, it starts off with a group of teens that have just turned 15 um, within a close time of each other. And at the age of 15, you got to pick a craft. And that's basically a craft is a job that you're going to apprentice under. Um, and we get to see Will's friends and some of their progression as well. So, Will and Horace. I know Will and Horace in the very beginning of the book have a very contentious rivalry with each other.
Right.
Um, they don't like each other that much. They're always bullying each other. Um, it's just one of those things where um, they're rivals. They're always at each other's throats and whatnot. Um, and then we have Will, who has aspirations of being a knight. And would you say that these aspirations quickly get shattered?
Yes, definitely.
Will is not the biggest and strongest of kids. I believe he's described as being small for his age. What he lacks with strength and burliness is intellect and craftiness. He's able to sneak around. He's very quick-witted, and his other counterpart Horace, he's kind of the larger than normal kid who's very athletic, um, muscular, knows his way in a fight. So we get to see both of them in the beginning aspire to be knights. And during the selection process, Horace does get selected for battle school, which is the apprenticeship to become a knight. Um, Will is rejected. He is rejected by actually multiple craftsmen. I guess he gets rejected by both the battle master and the horse master.
Right.
So he's not even allowed to be a stable boy for the war horses. Um, so at this point in time, he doesn't even get to find out on the day of choosing what his role is going to be. Um, Holt, he hands the Baron a note, and this kind of piques Will's interest because he wants to know what was written on this note. And he breaks into the castle at night, and it ends up that it was a test. And he had passed the test, and the test was basically testing his ability to actually break into the castle.
Yeah, which is
And,
pretty clever.
Yeah, so he is accepted as a ranger. And how would you explain what a ranger's duties are in the world of Ranger's Apprentice?
I don't know. There's so many of them. Like, I guess the one of the main things that gets learned is kind of like you were talking about before, one of the last times we talked, that they kind of do preparation before battles and battles before battles in some ways, and they kind of are kind of guardians around places in ways that you can't see them, and a whole bunch of other things like that.
Yeah, so they do serve many different purposes. It seems they are kind of the forward scouts in military conflicts. Um, they're kind of like medieval ninjas, to be honest. They go about unseen, collecting intelligence. They're very deadly at a distance, and um, they their roles are pretty expanded in the rest of the book. I know in this book they talk about how the job of the ranger was instrumental in defeating Gareth the first time, and one of the things that rangers are also very good at is guerrilla warfare and leading those types of efforts. So, getting people prepared for a guerrilla warfare type of war. So you're not going to see, well, you do get to see Rangers play pivotal roles in um, some of the battles later in the books. So we do know that Rangers can also be master strategists when it comes to battle.
Right.
In the case of this book, we get to see that their woodscraft is pretty elite. Um, Hunting, tracking, gathering information, being unseen, and looking into the details of things that are normally overlooked. So they basically go out and kind of scout and report what they find to their local barons and whatnot. So we also get to see kind of the inner workings of the Knights training and how they differ from each other. Like Knights training is a group setting, and Rangers training is completely one on one, and it's like full immersion
Hmm.
from the get go. In the Knights training, it seems more geared upon combat and specifically, whereas Ranger training kind of has this full spectrum type of learning where you're learning about so many different things, even history. So even Will gets history lessons about previous battles and things like that. So it's a more all-encompassing apprenticeship versus the battle school apprenticeship that um, Horace is going under, and we can see that it's so different because of what happens to Horace versus what happens to Will.
Hmm.
Because Will is under the supervision of a single ranger, while Horace just kind of exists at a school with a bunch of other cadets. Um, and his situation, he is a new kid, but he has exceptional prowess with a sword already. He's actually really talented, and this draws some ire from some of the older students. and this iron causes him to be bullied repeatedly.
Yeah, that happens a hell of a lot in the first part of his training.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things that the author does is that he gets bullied, and then he has the desire to bully others weaker than him. As a he gets frustrated with his situation, and he feels he needs to take it out on others. So there's this
Psycho
point during
bullying.
there's this point during the story where he gets to meet up with his old ward buddies, um, and he becomes like the asshole of the group, and everybody's like, "What the hell's wrong with this guy?" What ends up happening is Will and Horace do end up getting into a fight, and they get separated by one of the battle masters. And this kind of at this point, we're like, man, these guys really do not get along. Um, and at that point too, it's like they weren't really friends either, even to begin with in the story. Um, as one of the things we learn about Will is that unlike the other wards, um, nobody really knows his last name or what family he came from. It's somewhat anonymous.
Right.
And when we talk about the other wards, they actually have family lineages that are in higher classes. It just so happens that many of their parents died in war, and a lot of the mothers died in childbirth.
Right.
Um, and that even happens to Will, that we find out that his mother died in childbirth as well.
Yeah.
And
That
his
that
father
part
had
in
died
that part
in
in battle school when he gets bullied, that was one of the most memorable parts of the book to me, because it really got it. The author did a really good job of explaining how hard that was, on top of how grueling the training was, and how much, and how there oddly was a benefit of it, in that it made him suffer so much more, to the point that when he went back to just the regular grueling training without the additional bullying, it was actually a lot easier for him.
Right. Yeah, yeah, I would say one of my favorite parts of the book is the comeuppance that happens when we get the resolution of his bully story arc. Um, that's actually my favorite part of the book. That's the part I like the most. When so before that, what happens is I guess there's some type of boar that has been terrorizing a town, and this old man who doesn't think halt is halt um, lets him know that this it's been destroying crops and scaring people and whatnot. And Holt basically tells the old man, "Hey, go back to the Baron and tell him to gather troops for a hunt tomorrow." And during this hunt, um, they kill the boar, and then little did they know that there was another boar there that was much bigger than the one that they just killed, and it blindsides them. And unfortunately, the boar goes straight towards the apprentices. The apprentices freak out, but they still remain pretty cool under pressure. Even though by the end of the ordeal, I think Will is like in tears because he couldn't believe how close to death he came. Um, and in that instance, both Horace and Will tried to save each other, even though they had this extreme animosity towards each other. It was at that point that, because of the great danger that they faced together, that they actually became friends after that, because they ended up saving each other's lives in some sort of sense. Um, So that is kind of like when their relationship coalesced, and Horace also vowed, "Hey, you saved my life. I owe you one. If you ever need help in any way, shape, or form, just let me know." Um, and that's when it comes to the other scene where these three bullies, they bully and beat Horace down because they feel that he has shamed the battle school by being saved by a ranger. They also attempt to beat up and bully Will. He does get a little bit battered, but not as bad as Horace did. Like, I think they threw a sack over his head and just started beating him with canes until he became unresponsive. So the bullies show up. They start to fight Will. Horace shows up as well. And right before they start to attack, Halt shoots some arrows into their canes and like makes them play fair, which is to fight one on one. Of course, Horace beats all their asses. I think he literally like canes one of them in the ass. And I think Halt actually kicked one of their asses when he was like back talking one of them.
Right.
I was like, holy shit, he just like smashed his elbow into the kid's face. It's like, man, I don't know, these guys were like extreme idiots. It's like, I guess they didn't really, nobody knows, that's the thing too. It's like, nobody really knows what the Rangers' role are except those who are like in the military or work from the Baron. Like, the Rangers have these spooky type of, um, like everybody thinks their reputations are mysterious and spooky, and that they're sorcerers and they can disappear
Right.
and appear at any time.
Because they're so good at staying hidden, right?
Right. So people are kind of fearful of Rangers.
Right.
Um, and so eventually, yeah, at the end of that conflict, Horus beats down all these dumbass apprentices, and there's like another respect there that happens between Horace, Holt, and Will. This is kind of like the formation of that trio. Because you see this trio in many of the other books. It's kind of like a deep friendship. It's just like this the trio of Holt, Horace, and Will, and the adventures that they go on in the rest of the book. But this is kind of like the formation of that bond and trust.
Oh, okay.
Because we do see that after that situation, Holt actually helps Horace out by reporting the bullies to the battle master. And then the bullies get exiled from the entire like barony. Like, not only do they get kicked out of school, they get kicked out of town completely.
Exactly.
So I haven't seen these characters come back yet, but I'm wondering if they possibly become villains in the future. I think it's definitely a possibility.
Oh, yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, but as of book 7, I haven't seen them return yet. So I think there's only a few other more books in the series, but there's certainly a possibility.
How many are there in total?
I think there's like 10 books. So what did you think about the boar hunt? Like, what'd you think about that whole scene?
That was interesting. I mean, it wasn't my favorite part of the book, but it was an interesting exploration of different ways to operate around that sort of thing.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because the role of the ranger wasn't to go out and kill the boar. It was, hey, let's go tell the people who want to have a fun boar hunt, and if things get out of hand, then that's when the rangers step in.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
they're just kind of observers and trackers, and it kind of reminds me of the episode of House of the Dragon when they they go on that hunting trip, and they're there to like spot the game and bring those who want to hunt it to the game.
Sorry, I
Um,
missed what you just said there.
no, I just thought there was it was interesting because it was kind of like the episode of Game or House of the Dragon where they went on the hunting trip.
Yeah, yeah, it kind of was. Yeah, it was a ritual that they were doing.
Right. I think in this case it was just they wanted to have fun hunting a boar.
Right.
It's like this dangerous beast that's plaguing a town,
Hmm.
but to everybody else back in the castle, it's like, oh, there's a boar hunt, yay! And I think Horace was the only apprentice that was invited to the boar hunt. One of the
Okay.
other things I forgot to mention about Horace too is that the battle master was like unsure whether or not that they should further his studies because they were afraid that he could possibly become a malcontent and he would have like these amazing sword skills, but he'd become like bad or evil with those
Right.
skills.
Right. Oh, by the way, I just discovered there's a new option on YouTube where when I go to our video as it's streaming like I usually do to share it, when I press share, I can also share it as a post on my YouTube channel. So it can be like a cross stream until it's done streaming.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Cool,
that's
cool,
pretty
cool.
cool.
Um, so
Anyway, yeah.
what do you think about the bully like resolution scene? How'd you like that
I thought that
in the
was really
book?
cool. That was like you, it was one of my favorite parts of the book.
Yeah, I thought Holtz did a good job at refereeing.
Yeah,
That's pretty much what he was doing. He's pointing out that these bullies were essentially cowards because they
yeah,
didn't want to fight one on one. I think the last bully was like complaining that he was injured, but he was fighting Horace, who was like completely beaten up and bloody from the previous encounter.
right.
But yeah, and then we get into so that kind of cements their friendship. Then we meet some more characters. What do you think of Gilliam?
Mm,
Or do
I
you
don't
not
know. He
remember
was
who Gilliam is?
I don't have the clearest memory of it, no.
Well, Gilliam is Halt's previous apprentice.
Oh, okay.
Gilliam is one of the few rangers who's adept in sword combat.
Okay.
So he carries a sword, um, and because his father was a knight, and we get to find out that it's not lower classes who get selectively put into the Rangers. He was noble born and he wanted to be a Ranger, opposed to William, who is not noble born and who gets put into the Rangers. As Will has this idea that highborn people are not recruited into the Rangers, and he finds out that that's not the case with
Right, right.
Gilliam.
Yeah, honestly, like in this book in particular at least, a lot of the characters other than the few kind of main ones were not really that memorable to me.
Like the Baron, and yeah, it doesn't really focus too much on the other characters. The other characters that we get to see in the beginning of this book do become prominent characters in later books. One that I can think of is the other ward named Alice, who becomes part of the diplomatic crew. She
Oh,
becomes an
okay.
important character later on. Um, I think the king is just like mentioned in passing. He becomes a more important character later on.
Okay.
But yeah, it's mainly the main crew, which is um, Horace, Halt, and Will,
Yeah.
and Alice to some respect as well. And there's another female character who gets introduced in the next book who becomes an important character. So yeah, many of the side characters. Gilliam becomes somewhat important. He does come back in other books as well. So you do get to know him a bit more. He teaches Will some awesome sword techniques in some later books,
Okay.
which he uses in battle. But
Sweet.
yeah, Gilliam, he is the former apprentice of Hulk.
Okay.
So I know in the book itself, the climax is not what I expected from this book, which is they hunt down two assassin beasts that
Yeah.
are half like bear, half ape, or something like that.
Yeah.
And one of the things I noticed about the series is they kind of completely abandoned like magic after the second book.
Oh, really?
Yeah, after book two, there's no like magic.
Why?
I have no idea. It's just kind of abandoned that
So it basically just
idea.
becomes historical fiction?
It's still fantasy. There's just no like magic or beasts or anything like that.
Hmm. Okay.
I would say that if you want to say historical fiction, I do know like a lot of the factions are based off of historical cultures that have existed. So you're going to see a lot of similarities there.
I
But
just mean I don't mean historical fiction as in based on actual historical events. I just mean like kind of taking place during medieval times, but not being fantasy because there's no magic or anything. I guess it depends
yeah,
on how you define historical fiction and how you define fantasy.
right, because we do know there's definitely fantastical elements in this book.
Yeah,
So we have
in this one for
these,
sure.
yeah, we have this because they introduce a villain in the very beginning of this book named Morgareth, and apparently he has the ability to command these creature armies. We also have in the end of the book these assassin beasts that are very difficult to kill,
Hmm.
that they have to deal with. And these assassin beasts had been killing major members of the Heirloom Society. I think they had killed like generals and people who were involved in the war against Margareth 15 years ago.
Hmm.
And apparently, Halt played an instrumental role in defeating Morgareth.
Right.
Did you read the next book? Or is this the only one that you've read so
No, I've only
far?
read book one so far.
Okay. So the interesting thing about this Ranger's Apprentice series, it seems that the story arcs go in two books. So every two books kind of tells a single story arc. Because we get introduced to Morgareth, but you don't get to see Morgareth until the next book.
Okay.
Um,
He seems like, at least in book one, to be kind of the big bad guy.
yeah, but we don't. He's the big bad guy behind the scenes. He's kind of
Yeah, that's what I
controlling
mean.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and he's the big bad guy in the next book. But I would be interested of what you think about book two, because book two, um, I did not expect the ending of book two at all.
Okay.
Like it was totally unexpected for me. I was like, really? Are you serious? Are you guys doing that? It's like, okay.
How many books
Uh,
have you read in the series so far?
seven, I think.
Oh, okay. So, does whatever whatever they did in book two get better after book two?
You mean like, are other books better than this one?
Yeah, yeah.
My favorite book so far is book four. So
Oh, okay. Cool.
yeah, they do get better. Um, I think book four is kind of the peak so far for me. I really, really liked book four. Um, but what I do like about the different books is that they cover different regions of the world for the most part.
Oh, okay.
So they're always kind of building the world. And they're always like traveling the world and meeting different cultures and whatnot.
That's
Because
cool.
yeah, because in the last book I read was about a completely different culture and a different part of their world.
Okay.
So yeah, I think the only book that kind of takes place in the initial area is book one. Is it right after book
So,
one they're traveling?
so does every book take place in a different part of the world, or are there certain books that are there sometimes cases when there are multiple books that take place in the same part of the world?
Well, book three and four take place in the same part of the world.
Okay.
Book four, five, and six take place in the same part of the world. Because that's what I was talking about when they have like two book story arcs.
Okay.
So like those two books will be in that particular region, and then there's maybe a time jump, and then they go to another story in another region. There is a jarring time jump though, where they go backward in time. That one confused me a little bit.
How far?
Book seven is before book five and six.
Okay. Oh, so I've heard I can think of at least, well, maybe only one other series. No, actually, maybe a few series that have done that have put out other books later on in the series that take place in between earlier books. One of them is that series I told you and Tristram about called I forget what it's actually officially called, but I just called it the Myth series. It was a it was another kind of wholesome or YA fantasy series that I read in elementary school, and the
Mm-hmm.
and the so the but later on in the series, the author Robert Asprin wrote newer books that take place chronologically in between book three and four. For examples, or other later books and stuff like that. I don't know why they do that, but I mean, in a way, it's just like writing prequels, but in a more complicated way.
Well, it's a little complicated because one, I didn't even know it was a prequel. That's why it was a bit confusing for me
Oh, okay.
because it's
Yeah,
not
that
really
should be clear if they're
explained.
gonna do that. Like usually, if they do that sort of thing, they tell you the description in the Goodreads, or at least they should.
Yeah, well, at least like the prologue of the book or something should explain it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was no explanation. So when certain things started happening, I was like, what's going on? I thought this X, Y, and Z already occurred, and something like that. I was like, oh, well, there must be some weird timeline going in this book. So I had to go and Google it, and I was like, yeah, this book takes place before book 5 and 6. I was like, oh, okay.
Okay.
But I do plan on finishing the series. I just wanted to try out some other books before I got back into it.
And I'll continue reading and discussing with this series unless it gets terrible for some reason. Seems pretty good so far.
I think you'll like book 4. The stakes are really high in book 4, and I really liked book 4. Book 4 was good,
Cool.
but 5 and 6 are okay too. They're different, um, and it's like a more mature story for that character.
Book 5 and 6.
Well, yeah, for Will.
Okay.
It's a little bit more mature. But yeah, they're decent books. Like I think the pacing's pretty good. I liked one of the things I liked a lot was it seemed smarter than your average YA book. I mean, just how they
Yeah.
explained.
And it wasn't cheesy or condescending or anything like that.
No, it was like, okay, there's this job called a ranger, and they have all these different responsibilities. And when they explained the intricacies of the job, it seemed like the author was well researched. I don't know anything about archery or anything about woodscraft, but it seems like at least the author researched it pretty well enough for me to believe what he's writing.
Yeah, if nothing else, at least it seemed authentic.
Right. So I was like, and it continues to do that with his job, at least for the next few books. He learns new skills and applies those new skills in various ways. So they continue to build upon like his skill set and whatnot.
That's pretty cool.
So yeah, this is just kind of an opening salvo. I also like the way the book ended. What do you think about him finding out about his past?
I thought that was pretty interesting. That was one of my favorite parts of the book too.
Yeah, so we get to find out about Will's father. And what do you remember about that? The thing that Holt explains to him about his father.
I don't remember that much other than the very end part with the big bad guy and almost trying to kill fuck, I forget the character's name, but the
Holt.
character, yeah, yeah.
Well, Holt, yeah, he gets fucked up by one of the assassin beasts. But Will figures out that he can use fire arrows and fuck up the assassin beast that
Right,
way.
right, yeah. So that's how he
Uh,
killed. That's how he killed one of them.
yeah, Holt
Right,
like really messed one up, and it was fatally injured, and it did a suicide attack on the Heavy Knights. And the Heavy Knights like stabbed it in the chest and then threw it in a bonfire.
yeah.
And then
Creating fire arrows is a pretty cool power.
the second one was fucking everybody up actually. And Will had the bright idea of putting pitch on his arrow and then shooting it into the assassin beast.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, the end of the story is when Will returns back to the barony fiefdom, and he gets the choice to become um, enrolled in battle school. And he actually rejects it. He rejects it even though it was a dream of his from a young child to be a knight.
Right.
He rejects it because he actually enjoys being a ranger.
Mhm.
So
Which, of
after,
course, you would have expected for this kind of book, but it was well executed.
yeah, so he was made like a nice like sword and shield and everything by the Duke, and the battle school master was totally going to accept him as a student, but he rejected that. And then that's when Holt had a talk with him about his father. And Will didn't really know much about his father. He was Will was told that his father was a knight, and then we find out that his father was not a knight. He was just a commoner.
Right.
He was a soldier, but he was not a knight. So he was told that Holt told Will that he knew his father. But when I say know his father, he only knew him for a very brief time,
Right.
because Holt was in danger and injured, and Will's father came to help and protect him, and he died protecting Holt.
Right.
One of the things Holt witnessed, he saw his father get like stabbed dozens of times and still fight off the war goals.
Yeah, that was a pretty badass moment.
And his father, Holt explained that he had never seen something like this before. He says that war goals are bred to have a single minded nature to kill and wreak havoc, no matter the cost. And his father killed so many wargulls that they started to flee from
Yeah,
him. So that was
which
the
is
only
pretty
time.
fucking goddamn impressive.
Yeah, so that was like the only time in Holt's life that he had seen something of that nature. And he knew, in his dying words, he asked Holt to check up on his wife, who was going to give birth soon. Unfortunately, Holt was too late. And by the time he got there, she had already passed away.
Right.
So he decided that, okay, I'm going to take care of this kid by making him a ward of the Baron. Not necessarily making him an apprentice, but let's, make sure his life is taken care of. Eventually, he did develop skills that were desirable. So Holt did. Holt had been watching Will from afar for a while. And I think one of the first time he realized that he had the skills to become a ranger was when he witnessed him stealing like pies from the kitchen and things like that. So it's like,
Right.
okay, this kid has some skills.
Right.
So yeah, we get to learn that Will's father was extremely heroic. Um, he saved Holt's life, and Holt vowed that he would make sure to take care of Will. And
Right.
Will was questioned Holt, well, why didn't you make yourself known? And Holt was like, well, the reputation of a ranger. Imagine if they knew you were somehow associated with a ranger. That would have just made your life much, much worse. And he
Yeah.
was like, you're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
that's another interesting trope that was well executed in this book, which is the noble lie.
The noble eye.
Yeah.
Well, do you consider it a noble eye?
Well, not revealing himself to him in that way anyway.
Right, right. So yeah, we do see Holt as becoming kind of like Will's surrogate father, and that kind of happens throughout the series. That we see that their relationship becomes closer and closer, where Will is almost like his son, and he kind of treats him like in the same form or fashion. Because Holt doesn't have any kids, he's a ranger. It's kind of a hard life where you can't really it's very difficult to maintain a romantic relationship when you're just like chilling out in the wilderness all the time.
Yeah,
And you gotta
obviously.
be, yeah. And if you're
Hey,
these, they're
baby,
kind
want
of
to
like
come
these
and
secret
baby be
agents.
homeless with me?
And they're kind of like the secret agents of the medieval world. So
Right,
it's not like they can, like, imagine if James Bond had a wife, that would totally make him compromised,
right,
so. But in general, because I know Tristram enjoys this series,
right.
what do you think about this initial book?
I'd say it's pretty good. It's worth reading. It's not amazing or anything, but it's not bad,
Well,
and
it's
it's
not
a-
Sanderson, no. That's
it's it's like passable to the point that I will read book 2 and see how it goes. But you know, sometimes
it's
in series that turn out to be really great, book 1 is the worst book and they get better from there. That happened with the Dresden Files.
Yeah, book one wasn't all that great in the Justin Files, and it started getting better and better.
Yeah,
I'll say that I really like book four. I think if you got up to book four, you'd really like it too. Book
cool.
two is pretty decent. Book three is decent, and then book four is like, holy shit.
Nice.
um, but yeah, you'll get there. And plus, these books are fairly short, so that's one of the things I like about it. It's like really light reading, really
Right.
short. The pacing is pretty good, you know. Um, like it keeps it snappy. It's not trying to draw out scenes or anything like that. It's not as snappy as Harry Potter, where you miss one paragraph, you're like, "What the fuck is going on
Yeah.
now?" 'Cause that's one of the things I don't like about the wire A of YA is that some of the pacing is ridiculous. Like you
I
miss a
don't mind. I
paragraph.
don't mind it. I just prefer the faster pacing.
Well, in some of the wire A, I'm talking about like I don't know, C.S. Lewis or like the early Harry Potter books. Like they go through scenes like blazingly quick.
I understand that for C.S. Lewis in particular. They go through shit so quickly that they don't even bother to explain anything. Like even a soft magic system in Tolkien, for example, has a little more explanation to it than just the totally random shit that happens in Narnia.
Right. So yeah, it's I think the pacing's okay. I thought that it was pretty good. And it's because it's more modern. So he has a modern tendency to write in a more modern fashion. So I kind of find that some more modern YA, and even things like Red Rising. I kind of consider Red Rising a bit YA-ish. I don't know
Oh,
if
really?
you.
I don't.
Well, the
I wouldn't
character's
really.
young. I think
I
the
wouldn't really
character by
consider
book
it.
three is like 20.
I guess I don't know. I mean, I think Brandon Sanderson has talked about how they publishers basically classify YA as anything that has a character who's a teenager or a kid. So that might be true, but to me, it definitely doesn't seem grimdark, but it seems like adult sci-fi fantasy to me that becomes hardcore sci-fi.
Yeah, yeah. I think
But
it
what makes you
teeters
think
on
it's
there. It
YA?
teeters on it. Because there are some angsty things in that particular series.
Yeah, there definitely are.
So
There's
I
some
mean,
angsty things in Mistborn.
well, yeah, and I
Is
think
Mistborn Era
Mistborn
1
teeters.
YA? Is it Era 2 YA too?
I wouldn't consider
I
Air
w-
2 YA.
I've never really considered them YA before, but if they consider it based on the age of the character and they do that based on the character of Vin in Era 1, I mean, they could do that, but I would find that kind of confusing.
Well, there is a bit of a teen angsty relationship in that book.
There certainly is, yeah. Definitely not my favorite part
Usually,
of the books.
to me, anything that focuses on that kind of goes in the YA direction, in my opinion.
Okay.
Because I haven't read, well, I have read other Sanderson books that are considered YA,
Like
but
Elantris?
I don't know if I would consider that YA.
No?
No.
Like what?
The other book, the
Oh,
where he
Alcatraz?
draws. Oh yeah, for sure that's YA. That's like undoubtedly
Yeah,
YA.
yeah. That's
Um,
extremely YA. Alcatraz
yeah,
and the Evil
that's like on the
Librarian.
extreme end of YA. And then he has
Yeah.
the other book, the Arithmetist,
Oh,
that I
right.
also
Yeah,
think is
that's why
YA,
that's YA too, yeah.
but it's not as YA as Alcatraz, which is like
Definitely.
super YA.
And also one of his new secret project ones, Tress of the Emerald Sea, is YA.
Is that related to the Cosmere or no?
I think that one does have Cosmere tie-ins, if I remember correctly.
Okay. I have not. Is that one of the ones that you had to be in the Kickstarter for?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't.
But I've seen I've seen Brandon Sanderson read his preview chapters of each of the books on his channel.
Okay. Well, I would consider this like middling YA, I guess. It's not.
Yeah, that sounds fairly accurate.
Yeah, it's not the upper end because I kind of consider the reason why I consider Red Rising YA is because it kind of has a similar premise to other YA books.
Like Hunger
So we're talking
Games.
Hunger Games, the the Japanese comic book they kind of popularized that style, that premise. Um,
Of
what was it
the
called?
rising up of the underdog to overthrow a tyrannical government.
No, no, no. The premise I'm talking about is kids fighting to the death in a tournament.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's the Hunger Games trope.
Well, that trope actually originates with a Japanese comic book.
Oh, I
I
thought
keep
it
forgetting
in
what it's called.
the trope specifically of kids fighting to the death.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Um, shoot, what is it called? There's a movie. They turned
Oh,
it into a
yeah.
movie
I think I've
too.
heard of a movie about that sort of thing, but I forget what it's called.
Yeah, in the movie, basically, they put all these like kids on the island that get it's the same thing as the Hunger Games. There's a lottery. These kids get taken to an island and they have to fight the person last one standing is gets like a bunch of prizes. It's kind of similar to like Squid Game. But Squid Game
Okay.
is like a game that they play, and this one is like they go to different parts of this island and they got to kill each other. I think it's called
Okay.
like Royal Rumble or Rumble
Oh, Battle
something.
Royale?
Battle Royale, there you go. Like Battle Royale spawned the entire gaming genre.
Hmm?
It inspired an entire gaming genre, and I believe Hunger Games is heavily influenced by Battle Royale.
Okay. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
And I kind of consider Red Rising to have a little bit of that influence as well, especially in the Institute.
Hmm. Yeah, that's why, like you said, and I added this to the title of the chat, Red Hunger Games on Mars.
um, But I do see that it does evolve a bit, you know. Because I'm in book 3 now. Can't believe you don't remember how book 2 ends. It's like so savage, man. Book 2 ends so savagely. It's like a total like Strikes Back ending, where everybody gets screwed over and fucked.
I read too many books, man.
But I
I can only remember like the last dozen or so books that I read. Beyond that, they start to fade.
oh, but you know you liked Red Rising, but you can't remember the plot of the second
That's
book.
one of the many reasons I want to reread it.
um, yeah, as soon as the second book ended, I was like, what the fuck? I went and started listening to book 3 because I needed to know what happens next.
Yeah. To
It's
me,
that type of ending.
and I think Daniel Green and maybe other people have talked about this too. It seems like the first 3 Red Rising books are kind of a cycle to themselves, and then it kind of starts again after that in 4, 5, and 6, or I think there are 6 books. And yeah, to me, like the first one is really awesome as a trilogy, if I remember correctly, and book 4 to me was less good, but also kind of the start of a new cycle in a way, but then it keeps getting good again after that to me in book 5 and 6 again.
Well, I really liked book 2. Book 2 was hella good. Um, but I have to see how book 3 is gonna be. I just barely started book 3.
I remember liking book 2 more than book 1, and liking book 3 even more than book
Oh,
2.
book 2 is very good. It's like holy shit. There's so many up and downs and roller coasters in that book.
Mm-hmm.
Where you think, oh shit, they totally got screwed over. Oh, they overcame that. Oh, he got screwed over again. He overcame it. And at the
Mm-hmm.
end, it was like, holy shit, he got completely screwed over.
Yep.
Like we get to find out who Ares is and all of that stuff.
Yep. Gets better and
Yeah,
better, and more complex and hardcore sci-fi.
yeah, it's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I consider this kind of middling YA. It's not super YA, and it's not like edgy YA. It's just kind of
Yeah.
right there in the middle.
It's the kind of YA that's it's not annoying or cheesy in any way.
Yeah. So yeah, I really like this author's writing. I think he does a pretty decent job in the rest of the books too. So far, my favorite character is Holt. He's just like this wise ass veteran who gets shit done, and he definitely he doesn't take shit from anybody. He'll knock a 15-year-old's teeth out if they get too testy with him. He's like, don't talk to me like that ever again.
Yep.
After he smashed a dude's nose in.
He's
Like,
probably my
okay,
favorite character too.
Halt.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get to see more of Halt for sure. Eventually, it does transition into full Will, and you don't see a lot of Halt in the later books. But Will does become like as good as Halt is, so um, it's they become interesting. They stay interesting.
Okay.
All
Cool.
right. So, what's your overall grade on this one?
I think I gave this 3 out of 5 stars.
Okay. I think I gave it 4. Um, the problem with me is I read a lot of mediocre fantasy, probably more
Hmm.
than you do. And to me, this is better than mediocre, so I gave it 4.
Okay.
Um, I just thought it was snappy. It's short. I liked how Will's characters developed, especially. I thought it was really a wholesome how the story ended with him finding out about how much of a badass his dad was, despite him not being a knight. Um, and it just kind of tells, hey, you don't have to be a noble to be a badass.
Yeah.
And he's trying to basically teach that lesson to Will that he can be a badass without ever having to be of noble blood. Because he kind of predicated his whole existence. Hey, my father was a noble knight, so that's why I have to live up to that. And Halt's like, no, your dad was not even close to noble, but he was like the most badass person I've ever seen. So I thought that was a pretty cool lesson that he imparted on Will there.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's the like this. I keep saying this, but this book has a lot of tropes that are still executed very well. So it doesn't feel uh like it doesn't feel redundant or uh what the hell is that word? Like overused to the point of being ridiculous or something. I forget what that word is, but yeah, it's
Yeah,
still a good book.
yeah, it's still fresh. Like some of the stuff in this is still fresh. I think most of the freshness around the book revolve around what the role of a ranger is and the types of jobs that they have to do.
Yeah,
And you'll see their roles evolve throughout the series. But yeah, you'll get to see it. It's pretty cool stuff.
sweet.
But all right, man. Before we bounce out, were there any like books or shows you wanted to talk about that you've seen or read recently?
Yeah, there was so I've been reading a lot of short stories in a collection of short stories by H.G. Wells, and
Mhm.
not all of them are that great, but some of them are really good. And the one that I read, oh, actually that was earlier today. Yeah, it was really good. I thought it was called The Crystal Egg, and it was basically about this crystal ball that this guy finds in a magic, or no, wait, that this guy gets from someone in a pawn shop because he owns a pawn shop, and he decides to keep it because it turns out to be this kind of viewing ball between Earth and Mars, and he figures out that he can communicate with Martians this way. So it's thought of by some people to be a precursor to War of the Worlds because I think if I remember correctly, it's the first time that he mentions Martians before War of the Worlds, and this was in 1897 or somewhere around there.
Oh wow, that's some forward thinking shit.
Yeah, like he's definitely he must be the grandfather of sci-fi, or wait, maybe Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is even earlier than that. If I
Mhm.
remember correctly, I think that might actually be even earlier, which is why um, some people say that Frankenstein is the first sci-fi book.
Okay, okay.
That was, oh yeah, see, 1818.
Holy crap.
Yeah, that's why some people say that Frankenstein was the first sci-fi book.
Okay. Oh, that's pretty early.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, there's some really good classic sci-fi and a lot of really good classic sci-fi short stories, and I didn't know until I stumbled upon them on YouTube recently that there are a lot of awesome H.G. Wells short stories. And so, oh, I've also been reading basically some of those collections of essays by David Sedaris that you've been sending me, and
Yeah.
those are always funny, and it's fun to learn bizarre and strange facts. Like one in the last one that I read that I thought was fascinating is that a lot of women especially with bigger tits, tend to take their bras off on their way home from work and keep them off all night or as much as they possibly can. I had no idea they were apparently so uncomfortable for them.
I didn't know that either. Which one were you reading?
It was one in Happy Go Lucky, which is one of his newest collections. Oh, actually, it came
I
out
haven't
this
read that
year,
one yet.
apparently.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that one yet, so I'll have to go check it out.
Okay. And I also read Mortal Engines, the first one in that YA fantasy series that you sent me.
What do you think of that? I thought it had a weird and interesting world that
I
they
thought it was
kind of
pretty
built there.
interesting. I liked how steampunk it was.
What do you think about the politics of the world? What do they call it? Like martial or how do they call it? They
Martial
call it like
law?
a no, they call it municipal Darwinism or something like that. Like
Oh
the
yeah,
way the
like the
world
caste
works.
system. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. How the cities eat each other according to municipal Darwinism.
Right, right. Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I thought
that's
it was
another
a
book.
really interesting
I'd
world.
say I liked that one about equally as Runes of Gorlan, like a really maybe
Mhm.
even a little bit more because the steampunk is a little bit more unique to me than fantasy, but I'm pretty sure I gave both of them a 3-star out of 5-star rating. Oh, actually, yeah, I see here I did because I'm on my Goodreads page. I gave
I
that
gave it
short
3 stars.
story. I gave that short story, The Crystal Egg, 4 stars, though. That's how interesting I thought that one was. Yeah, I'm just going through the ones that I thought were the best here. Oh, this interesting one. Um, I read a nonfiction one called "What I Talk About When I Talk About Running." It's by that Japanese author named Haruki Murakami, who wrote this really weird, like kind of urban, uh, like urban fantasy book with time travel I read called IQ 84. And it's basically a nonfiction book about how him getting into long distance running and competing in marathons is what got him into writing books in the first place. So that was a fairly interesting book.
You said it was nonfiction?
Yeah, it was just him, that author talking about how running got him into writing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Um,
And let me see. Yeah, that's pretty much everything of note that I've been reading lately, other than also, I think I told you, I don't remember last time whether I told you I finished book 3 of Malazan, Memories of Ice.
no, I don't think we talked about that. The only
Yeah.
thing I remember you saying in other contexts was that it's very military heavy.
Yeah, when we were talking with Tristram, I was saying it's very hardcore military fantasy. Yeah, book 3 definitely is. But what I
Okay.
like about Malazan so far is that all each one of the first 3 books are similar but different in some very interesting ways, which is why I'm pretty sure so far I've given all 3 of the first 3 books 4 stars.
Oh, okay. So they're pretty top tier for you then.
Yeah, man, I'm loving Malazan so far.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So
I
I
need to get
also
back into it.
yeah, man, are you on book 2?
I haven't started it yet, but that's
Oh,
what book
okay.
I'd be on if
Yeah,
I
book 2 was
start
really
it.
good too. I just finally put I'm sure you saw because I sent it to you. I just finally put out my spoiler-free review of it, video of it yesterday.
I did see that, yes.
Yeah. It's easier to do spoiler-free reviews of Malazan books because they're so fucking complex, and especially in the first few, it's hard to really identify what's going on with the plot, so it's really easy to be vague about what's happening. So Yeah, unlike a lot of other books we read, like Mistborn books or anything super Cosmere related with Brandon Sanderson, it's really easy to do spoiler-free videos about that. So the
Yeah.
only other, well, actually today I finally started rereading Golden Sun. We were talking about Red Rising earlier, and then other than that, the only other thing of note that I've been reading is we were talking about how I've been reading Wastelands Dark Tower Book 3, which we're going to talk about on my channel next week, and I'm really liking this one so far. I think so far for me, in the Dark Tower series, each book has gotten
Did you
progress.
finish it yet?
I'm almost finished it. I'm probably going to finish it today.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
So
about
to me,
30%.
with each one of the first three Dark Tower books, to me, each one of them I think I like them slightly more. I think I like book 2 slightly more than book 1, and I think I like book 3 slightly more than book 2. It's really cool. It kind of it kind of combines elements of the plot in book 1 and book 2, and
Mhm.
there's a whole lot more world building, and there's a whole bunch of fucking super weird Stephen King type of shit going on, and
Mhm.
it's yeah, it's just it's fascinating. I think it's a really good book.
Are you reading it or listening to it?
I'm reading it. I have a physical copy of it.
Okay, okay. Um, yeah, it's such a weird book, man. It kind of
It really is.
like
It really is.
this book. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like how Jeff Vandermeer writes
Oh
in his
yeah.
books.
Oh dude, now you mention that there's something that's so similar to
The
that in this.
bear,
It's
the bear,
there's a cyborg bear, yeah.
like a giant one.
Oh yeah, you've
um,
gotten to that part, hey, where there's
yeah, I've gotten to
a
the giant
cyborg bear
cyborg
that
bear.
basically used to be one of the guardians, which sounds like, I don't know, an elder god or something involved with what is seeming to be this actual act turning out to actually be this kind of sci-fi fantasy back story in Midworld.
It almost seems like it might even be more of a post-apocalypse thing.
That's what I
Like
mean, like
it's
sci-fi fantasy in the same way that Wheel of Time is post-apocalyptic.
yeah, it's so weird. It's such a strange story,
Yeah.
and
It's
I'm
like
really
it's like
liking it so far.
Western it's like Western horror sci-fi fantasy. Western horror post-apocalyptic sci-fi fantasy. It's like five different genres.
Did you see the message I left in the book chats about the hawk moths?
No, I didn't.
In the audiobook, I put a little message of the audiobook in there,
Of the
and it's
Honk
Roland
Mothas.
talking about the honk moths.
Yeah.
Oh, it's cracking up. The
Yeah, it's
honk
funny.
moths.
Yeah, that's the I think you said the audiobook narrator sounds like Dan Carlin.
Yes, like
Yes,
almost exactly.
I think you sent me an audio sample before of him him being Odetta and saying, talking about the Honk Mothas.
No, but it's funny when Roland talks about the honk moths. That's the funny part
Oh
because
yeah.
he's trying to say what Odetta says, but he totally says it in a super Caucasian way.
So the audiobook narrator is doing some Southern black chick's accent and then doing an impression of the like a super white guy's impression of the super Southern black chick impression that he did.
Well, Roland is trying to he's trying to give inspiration to, I guess her name is like Susanna now,
Right.
like her combined personality. And he's trying to inspire her when she's having doubts about her shooting ability. And he's like, remember what you did when the honk mafas, and I just started cracking up when he started saying that. I was like, really, Roland? I bet I'm wondering if Stephen King wrote this comedically, knowing people would probably laugh at, Roland saying it.
He
Because it's
probably
always funny
would.
whenever Roland says something anachronistic about modern society, when he uses like different words to describe things.
Yeah,
And he doesn't really understand what a honk mafia is.
yeah.
And I was reading some Reddit forums, and people were really upset that they had selected Idris Elba because they wouldn't be able to talk about the honk mafas.
They had selected what?
Idris Elba to play the
Oh,
gunslinger in the
yeah.
movie.
That's why I'm really hoping that they don't make a sequel to that, because it's just, like I've said before, it's really fucked up reading the books for me, because I keep picturing Idris Elba and then I have to correct myself and say, no, this is a white guy with blue eyes. It's specifically described that way because there's this dynamic between him and that schizophrenic black woman who accuses him and Eddie of racism, and then Eddie and him get in a mixed race relationship. So, like, that's the sort of shit where I don't think they changed uh Roland to Idris Elba for any woke reasons or any sort thing like that, but that's the sort
Mhm.
of case where it doesn't make sense to change the race of a character.
For the honk mafia.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you won't be able to have that moment, you know. Um, this wouldn't sound right if Idris Elba was saying that.
Yeah, exactly.
The honk mafias. I don't know.
Like
Maybe he might be able to
he
get
could
away with
say he
it.
could say that and sound cool while when he says it.
Yeah, if they ever made. But I almost feel like they should probably take this and make like a series out
That
of
would be
it. Not
cool. Yeah, they could totally do that. Or even a
like
mini
count.
series like they did with The Stand.
Right, right,
Or they could do multiple seasons since there are 7 books.
right. That's true. So I don't know. It would be a super. I think I know. Right now would be like the ripe time to do it. Do you know if you're planning on adapting this, or if anyone bought the rights to it or something?
I don't know, but obviously a lot of King books get adapted. I'm gonna look
Yeah,
up
yeah.
Dark Tower adaptation.
Because I've never seen the movie.
The movie came out. Yeah, the first thing that comes up is the movie that came out in 2017. Man, if
Mm.
I had known that I was going to read all 7 of the books, I would have never watched the movie, to be honest. It just it just keeps fucking up my image of Roland in my head.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, so I'll probably watch it after I finish all the books, and I'll check it out.
Okay.
Otherwise,
Oh,
I'll keep my
apparently,
distance.
which is fairly unsurprising, Stephen King's The Dark Tower has seen many potential and existing adaptations, both in movies and TV. Oh, okay. So there have been other adaptations that are probably not that good, and I haven't heard of them.
You mean for the
Oh,
Dark Tower or for
apparently.
something else?
Oh, okay. And then another source, IGN, said last year that Stephen King's The Dark Tower is being turned into a TV show.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's promising. Hopefully, they do a good job with it.
Yeah.
I'd be super down for that.
Yeah, that would be awesome, man. Um, oh yeah, that's why this sounds familiar. Oh yeah. Now that I'm reading this, I remember Daniel Green was talking about this on his YouTube channel, and I remember because I recognize the name Mike Flanagan here in this
Yeah, yeah.
headline.
Walter's Apprentice.
No, Mike Flanagan, who he's directed he directed, what the hell's that movie? Oh, he directed Doctor Sleep, which is the sequel to The Shining, which is apparently much truer to the Doctor Sleep book than than Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, adaptation was, even though it's a very good movie in spite of it being a bad adaptation, according to some people. I haven't read the book yet, though, but it's definitely on my to-read list. But I forgot why I was mentioning that. Oh, yeah, so Mike Flanagan, he directed that, and he directed those horror miniseries I told you about, the Haunting of Hill House, which is based on a classic haunted house horror book by, I forget the author's name, but it's a woman. And then also a similar one about a haunted house called The Haunting of Bly Manor. Then there was my favorite one of his, which is called Midnight Mass, which is about vampires. And then there was a newer one, which is about terminally ill terminally ill patients with things like cancer and stuff like that in the 90s, going to this hospice, which we find out was built on this, like, on the grounds where this Satanist worshiping cult was, and there are ghosts that haunted and stuff like that. And apparently, I think according to Daniel Green anyway, Mike Flanagan is a huge Stephen King fan. Obviously, since he made the Doctor Sleep movie, that makes sense. So it's like, if that's true, then it's good that a Stephen King fan is apparently working on a Dark Tower adaptation, because he's probably much less likely to fuck it up.
I hope if they do, we get to see Hawk Mothras.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
That's like some of my favorite stuff from the books.
Yeah.
Even though that data has calmed down now. But yeah, Hawk Mothras is some good stuff.
There's some really good, ridiculous stuff in this series.
Yeah, because Eddie's just kind of like the, that's his name, right, Eddie?
Yeah.
So like your average New York wisecracker,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Then you have your activists from the 60s.
Right.
And then you have the stoic knight, kind of knight character that Voland is.
Yep.
And
Remember the
you
face
have
of your
kid.
father.
Then you have the angsty kid, Jake.
Yes.
And they have to do that mantra every time they fire that gun.
That's so cool.
And that's
I
funny
forget what
because
I forget what it is. Like, I aim with my hand.
Or forget the face of my father.
Yeah. Otherwise, like, all of it, it's after. That's after each part of it, and then it's
I don't
like,
kill with my
I kill with my
I don't
heart,
kill
right?
with the gun. I kill with my mind or heart or something like that. Yeah.
I shoot with my mind, and I kill with my
Yeah.
heart. I forget what the eyes do.
Yeah, and I think Eddie's like, oh, I don't even remember what my father looks like.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good book so far. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, we're gonna do a full chat about it next weekend on my channel, so that'll be fun.
Yeah.
So anyway, what have you been reading lately?
A lot of the same stuff you've been reading. So Dark Tower. I just finished The Golden Sun recently, which is very enjoyable. I started the second one or the third book, which is, I forgot the title. Also,
Is it Morning Star, or is
there you
that's
go.
book
Yeah,
3?
that's it.
I'm surprised I
Morning
remember
Star.
that. I couldn't remember that was 3 or 4.
Yeah, that's it. That's the book.
Okay.
And yeah, I've been just watching The Last of Us. And it sounds like we'll probably do another chat of that soon, because next episode is going to be the last of the season. I've been watching a lot of the Negroes, Everyday Negroes, recently. I've actually been watching his reaction to Attack on Titan. the show that you don't like. He makes some funny comments about that show. So, Attack on Titan. I watched some Miyazaki movies recently. I
Okay.
watched his first movie,
Which
which
one's
is
that?
called Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind.
Okay.
Have you seen that one?
No, I think I've only seen Princess Mononoke.
Spirited Away,
Yeah, Spirited Away.
Howl's Moving Castle.
Yeah, I think those are the three I've seen.
Yeah, those are like the three that most people have seen.
Yeah.
So Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind is a post-apocalyptic tale.
Okay.
It's the first Miyazaki film. It's still good though. It was like made in the 80s. I was like, man, this animation still kicks ass, even though it was made in the 80s.
Okay.
Um,
Oh wait, so I forgot. I wanted to ask you, what do the Everyday Negroes guys think about Attack on Titan?
they don't think about it the way that you think about it.
They like it a lot more than I do.
Yeah, well, it's funny because he does make comments about the anime-ness of it. And his comment of the anime-ness is that they get somewhat exposition-y in the midst of battle. Like when they're thinking of like strategies and stuff, and like thinking about these strategies during battle. And there was something he pointed out from the first episode that was pretty funny. Is that I think there was a character that was like one of the soldiers who was like being emotional, and Addison said that it looked like he was turning into a Super Saiyan because they added all these special effects to
Dude,
it.
dude, it looked to me. That's one of the problems I had with the show. It looked to me like every time someone had an emotional reaction to everything, it was so fucking over the top. It was like every reaction was them turning Super Saiyan, or they were like super fucking constipated in reaction to everything. Like, my mom died. I dropped this.
I think that's why it's somewhat funny. I think it's funny that he found humor in that.
Yeah.
That they were like super emotional and turning into Super Saiyans all the
Yeah.
time over that stuff.
Yeah.
Because I watched his first few React videos, and I watched his most recent one, and you can tell with the most recent one that he's like really into the show. Because the recent ones is where it gets like super gritty, where like main characters die off like flies and all that.
What episodes are that? Those?
He was like in episode 21 when it was his most recent react was from episode 21. But
Okay.
yeah, he likes the show. He's watched 21 episodes of it. It's an extremely popular show in the
Yeah, I
anime-verse.
know. I've heard a lot of anime nerds and booktubers talk about it.
Attack on Titan. It's because it's a fantasy setting.
Yeah. Yeah.
That actually evolves into a steampunk. So
Ugh.
So there's like an evolution of technology in the show that happens. So I don't know. I guess I'm used to watching anime, so seeing that stuff is like completely normal to me.
Yeah.
It's not. It's like
I've
I
watched a
think for some
decent amount of
people it's like
anime, but I feel like you've probably still watched a lot more than me.
I've watched tons, man, like a ridiculous amount. If I went through my Netflix history, it's probably like 25% of it's anime.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's definitely more like maybe more like 10% for me.
Yeah. I'm always trying to watch like newer anime shows that come out too. So, Attack on Titan is the one thing that's unique about Attack on Titan is that there's no filler. So there's only 5 seasons, but this show started maybe 7 or 8 years ago or longer. So they've gone 2 years without a season, 2 or 3 years without a season, just so that they don't create filler, you know. Because some shows filler just kills it, you know. But they made sure not to do that with Attack on Titan.
Well, that's good. Arcane's still better.
Yeah, well, Arcane's not anime though.
Okay,
Arcane is a animated show,
true.
but it is not anime.
Well, Dragon Ball, even Dragon Ball Z is better, in my opinion.
I guess it's if you watch Dragon Ball Z Kai, the original Dragon Ball Z, I don't think is better.
Really? Maybe I just don't
Yeah.
mind the cheesiness as much in Dragon Ball Z out of nostalgia.
Well, okay, so there's Dragon Ball Z, which is the original, and then they came out with a newer version called Dragon Ball Z Kai. Okay. So what Kai did is they took out all the filler. So you do not have any episodes where a character is powering up for the entire episode. That does not
Oh, right,
exist
yeah.
in
Well,
Kai.
oh, yeah, you told me about that a while ago, but I still haven't watched it.
If you ever want to rewatch Dragon Ball Z, watch Kai. Do not watch the original. It's just way too much filler
Right.
in the original.
Hmm. You know, I think I'm having trouble thinking of that many anime shows that I've watched because I've watched that I feel like I've watched so many more movies in comparison to shows, but I would say even Evangelion, for example, I like more than Attack on Titan also. Even though in my opinion, the ending of the Evangelion show and at least one of the 3 or 4 different movies after that are super fucking weird and nonsensical and confusing.
Well, and then you have like the remake of the show that steers like the show in an entirely different direction.
Oh, I didn't even know there was a remake.
Well, yeah, it was like it's 4 movies, but
Oh,
they
that's
kind
the
of
remake of the show?
yeah, those 4 movies where they rehashed the entire show. That's basically a remake of the show. They
I
just
guess
made it into four
they go
movies.
through like a lot more steps in between in the show, but they do face basically the same angels and stuff, I guess, right?
Yeah, the thing I liked about the movie is like, man, the action was like way more on point.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it was like much better in the movie. It was
Hmm.
more modernized. The show has like the story is much better, but the movie
Yeah, I
has
agree.
like way better battle sequences. Um, yeah, a lot of people consider Evangelion the goat, so I wouldn't. You saying that Evangelion is better than Attack on Titan is not surprising for me, because a lot of people think that Evangelion is like the best of the best animes that has ever been produced.
Until it gets super fucking weird at the end, I love most of it.
Yeah, it does get kind of strange.
And I can handle
Yeah.
weird stuff, but it has to be like it has to seem like it has a point to it to me. I just didn't get it. I totally did not get the endings. The
For the
multiple
last,
different but similar endings.
yeah, the last 2 episodes require like you to watch a breakdown video from YouTube to understand what's going on.
See, that shouldn't be necessary, man.
Yeah. Well, they kind of tried to redo the ending by releasing a movie.
But the
And I
the
think,
movies that the movie was just as weird though, man.
well, I think the movie was weird, but it wasn't just like random things and then with exposition over it.
Right.
Those weird stuff was happening, but it wasn't like you're inside the characters' heads. Like the last two episodes of the original show, you're inside the characters' heads and you're just trying to think through thought processes. It's like, this
And
is
it's
not the
so
best way to end the
freaky
show.
and repetitive and weird, and even has like fucking cheaper production value than a lot of the rest of the show.
Right, because there's no battles or nothing.
Yeah,
It's just like exposition with random shit playing in the background.
exactly.
But yeah, even I know the movie doesn't make a lot of sense either, but at least it's like not exposition. There's just weird
But
shit going on screen.
the first two or three movies, though, I agree the combat in them is even better than the combat in the show.
Right. My greatest of all time anime show for me, it's definitely Standalone Complex.
I've
It's
never seen that one.
it's a cyberpunk. It's Ghost in the Shell.
Oh, cool.
I
Oh,
think
yeah, I definitely should
you
check
would
out
love
that
it.
one.
I think you would really like it because you know how Ghost in the Shell tends to be more intellectual, but not so intellectual that you don't understand it. And that's what I mean by the last two episodes of Evangelion, where it's like so intellectual it just doesn't make any sense. I'm saying it's intellectual as in they don't treat the viewers like idiots. They talk about complex topics and some philosophy too. What it means to be human. All of the tropes that we see in cyberpunk types of stories. But I think a standalone complex does it the best out of a lot of anime shows that are in that realm of cyberpunk. There's not many cyberpunk anime shows. There are, but they're not to the level of Ghost in the Shell as far as the intelligence of the plot and
Sweet.
the character motivations and things like that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've still only seen the original movie. So yeah, I should watch the show and Standalone Complex.
The standalone complex has officially now, I think, 4 seasons because Netflix kind of rebooted the show.
Oh, okay.
So there's the original 2 animated seasons, and I believe there are 2 newer seasons, which are also
Okay.
pretty interesting,
Cool.
which I would also recommend. All right. Then we got off the deep end here.
Yeah.
I know you didn't like Attack on Titan because you thought it was cheesy or corny
Yeah.
or what was it?
Cheesy, corny,
Cheesy,
same sort of thing.
corny.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you couldn't stomach it. Was that bad to
No.
you?
Yeah, it was. It was really bad. Even after episode 1, I was like, "Oh man, you're lucky you're my friend, Dusty. I'm gonna try watching episode 2. Maybe I'll try episode 3." Then I watched the first 3 episodes. I'm like, man, this is fucking terrible. I can't do it.
You didn't like the premise?
I like the premise, but it was just so cheesy.
Okay. It's just I'm used to that type of cheese. Like
Right.
that type of
You
cheese
have
is
a
kind of
much
normal
higher
in anime.
tolerance for cheesiness than I do. I can definitely find, some cheesiness hilarious, like Starship Troopers, for example, because I know it's deliberately way over the fucking top. Or like, I think I told you I've been watching the original Scream movies in the 90s because I hadn't seen them before, and I
Uh-huh.
learned that they were satires before I watched them, which makes them hilarious to me. So, but so like I can find satires hilarious if I know something is cheesy on purpose, but that just seemed like if it's if it's cheesy because it just seems like it's really not well done, I can't stomach that.
So you can't stomach like the Super Saiyan emotional scenes
No,
when people go Super Saiyan when they're like
like
getting
I'm
emotional.
angry or I'm sad.
I guess I'm just used to it. Like I don't even blink an eye when I see stuff like that.
I just laugh and then go, "Oh my God, this is terrible."
Okay. Well, if I think if you want to experience the show, it's worth checking out the Negroes reacting to it.
Oh yeah, I bet. Yeah.
It's super funny. It's funny because on the first episode, he's like, "Well, that's the first time I ever thought a woman is a literal snack." Because when the giant eats the mom, he's like, "Oh, she is the ultimate snack."
That's
You
hilarious.
know how they talk, man. It's
Dude, you should see his reaction to episode 3 of The Last of Us because the the gay stuff totally snuck up on him. It was so funny.
oh, you know what? I need to go watch that. I think that must be recent because I think they covered two.
Yeah.
Because this is after the death of Dre, so
Yeah, I'm pretty
um,
sure it was pretty recent. Yeah, after that. Yeah.
so I'll have to check. Yeah, I've been watching the reacts to Last of Us, so I have to check that out.
Yeah. It's funny.
All right, so I guess we could start to wrap it up here. You got any plugs you wanted to plug away?
Yep. Everyone should check out my channel, Mindgasms, where Dusty and I often talk about similar topics like fantasy books and then sometimes nonfiction topics like political stuff or whatever. And yeah, tomorrow check out Dusty, you and Chris and I are gonna talk about what I recently heard in someone talking on a video about an article Noam Chomsky wrote about his thoughts on Chat GPT and linguistics and the future of AI, basically. So I thought it would be interesting to talk with you guys about that. So we're going to
Hmm.
talk about that on my channel tomorrow, and people should check that out. And also, in terms of fantasy books, check out my spoiler-free review for Dead House Gates, Book 2 in the Malazan Book of the Fallen series by Steven Erikson that Dusty and I mentioned. And I'm also, I don't remember whether I said this before we were live or after, I'm also going to make a video about The Last of Us that we were mentioning too. I'm going to make an episode, a video about the gay and lesbian episodes and connect it to Foucault and history of sexuality, which I talk about a lot on my channel. So yeah, check out Mindgasms for all that stuff. And oh yeah, next week also we're gonna talk about. We were mentioning Dark Tower Book 3, The Wasteland. So we're gonna talk about that next week. So
Hmm.
what are we going to talk about on your channel next week?
Next week, because has episode 9 aired yet?
I think it's supposed to air this Sunday. I think episodes air on Sundays.
All right, so I'm thinking we could do The Last of Us
Okay.
season wrap up, and
Yeah,
then
we can do that.
2 weeks from now, we could do Will of Time Part 3 for the Crossroads of Twilight
So you want to do
on Thursday.
fifth sorceress 3 weeks from this weekend?
I'm not gonna. I can't read that fast, man. I'm reading the physical copy of this book.
Oh, you can't read a 900-page book in 3 weeks?
No, I'm not that quick.
Okay. Well, I'll still start reading it pretty soon.
I've started reading it. I think
It
I'm
takes
like,
me longer to read physical books too, so
yeah, I started reading it, and I'm to the part where, because I've listened to the audiobook before, and I am seeing differences here.
right, because you listened to the abridged version, which you said you thought seemed like it might be better in
Pretty
comparison to
normal.
the terrible reviews that it was getting.
Like the abridged version was like 4.5 hours long.
Okay.
And this is a 900-page book, so it should be like 20 hours long. So they must have cut out a lot from the abridged version. So I'm expecting to see a lot of bad stuff. Because I was like, man, so many people hate this book, and when I listened to it, it seemed okay. But then now I'm like, okay, there's definitely some strange things that they cut out that I'm starting to see. Like I don't remember that his horse is the one who tried to kill him. I do not remember that happening in the audiobook.
Oh, okay.
This horse tried to push him off a cliff. Like, I do not remember that happening. Okay, that's strange. But yeah, that one it's gonna be to be determined. It just depends on how quickly I can actually read that. Um, and it's something I'm working on. But unfortunately, I have to read it. There's no audiobook version of this particular book
Right.
that's acceptable. So
Is there an audiobook of the abridged version but not the full version or something like that?
that's right. It's not Audible
Oh, really?
exclusive.
Wow.
Yeah, it's an Audible exclusive, and Audible only has an abridged version.
Oh, okay.
Like a lot of these books, like the Malazan books are Audible exclusives. A lot of them you can't find and you can't check them out from libraries.
Okay.
But yeah, next week we can try to do Last of Us 2 weeks. We can try to do the Wheel of Time,
Good.
and then
We're doing lots of book chats lately. I like that. It's fun.
yeah, and I eventually want you to check out the Ghost of the Shell show.
Oh
I
yeah,
think you'd really like it.
definitely. Yeah. I
It's
like the
just a
movie, so I bet I
it's a
would
matter
like the
of trying to
show.
find the streaming, like a streaming platform for it. But the first season is supreme. It's very, very good. I think you'd like it.
Sweet.
All right, man. So, all right, thank you everybody for watching, and join us soon. I guess your next chat we're gonna do. What do you want to do for your on your channel?
We're going to talk with Chris tomorrow about Noam Chomsky's recent comments on Chat GPT, the linguistics in that in comparison to human linguistics, and his thoughts about the future of AI.
Okay, if you have his video discussing that, let me know. Send me a
Yeah.
link to that. I'll check it out for sure.
Yeah, I'll send you the one that I just heard about yesterday in a Breaking Points video about it.
Okay, okay, cool. All right,
Yeah.
man. Well, thank you everybody for watching. Join us next week for our various ventures, and you have a great day today.
Adios until next time.
All right, bye bye. One thing I was gonna say.